Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. Today we're doing a highly requested episode. Today we're talking about the murder of Meredith Kercher and the girl that was involved with the murder investigation and whatnot was Amanda Knox. And this was really popular back in like 2009 when the murder happened, and then 2012, 2013, 2015, and 16. So we're going to talk about, there were 3 trials, and she is actually acquitted of this murder as of late.
This one threw me for a loop. While we're doing the entire part of this, going through the court stuff, I had never heard of this case prior to us getting into it.
I told him, I said, hey, listen, someone requested Amanda Knox, and he was like, who is that?
I'm kind of dead to the world.
I was like, are you kidding me?
So anyways, when we're going through this, I was taken back by how many times it took to find out the final answer that they were going to give.
Back and forth and back and forth.
Anyways.
Okay.
But
we're going to talk about her life, Meredith. We're going to talk about the courts and the trials and the acquittals and obviously the murder investigation and this crazy investigator that I do not like him at all. Anyway.
Yeah, I didn't like him either. So Amanda Knox was born in Seattle, Washington. She was born July 9th, 1987. She had her mom, which was Etta Mellis, I think is how you pronounce it, and her father was Kurt Knox, and he was a vice president of Macy's, or vice president of finance for Macy's. She had a sister, Deanna, and then 2 stepsisters. I think they were all younger than her, but the stepsisters were Ashley and Delaney. Unfortunately, her parents did divorce when she was still a toddler. So through the entire proceeding of this case, you see 2 different families kind of really coming together in support of her, which is always nice.
So Amanda Knox grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Seattle. She did play soccer and other very athletic sports, and it deemed her the name Foxy Knoxy, which would later come back to haunt her. She did really well in school, and she wanted to go to preparatory school for linguistics. And by all appearances, Amanda was the typical college student. She threw loud parties, she did crazy things, but she was also on the dean's list, so she was kind of the best of both worlds. She did want to study in Italy because that would further her linguistics position and job in the future. So she saved up a ton of money. She had 3 jobs. And she was going to go over to Perugia, whatever it's called. It's in Italy. And she would be staying with some flatmates to help pay the rent.
And I thought Perugia, I thought it was a made-up name. I thought she was joking with me.
He didn't know the story of Amanda Knox, so when I tried to tell him about it,
Perugia sounds like a fruit.
Are you telling me the story right now?
Sounds
I was like, just listen.
But she did. I think she was. I know she was a big Harry Potter nerd as well, and so she was.
I love her for that. That's the only reason I like Amanda Knox.
And I wasn't big on Harry Potter.
But I turned him. I made him watch all of them.
But so it's linguistics though. So she ends up picking up Italian really quick, and she was reading the Harry Potter book in German.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty cool. I have no. See, I'm losing my words again.
I know a couple of German words.
No, I have no
but
ambition.
I do. Oh, so
yeah, I have no ambition to.
By the way, my German word is sauerkraut.
I don't think that's. What about Braunschweiger?
Bratwurst. It's all food related. Was yours food related?
Yeah, it's a sausage.
Okay, see, food related.
Okay.
Are in love with Harry Potter.
I am. I'm reading it in German. And I'm going to get the second one in Italian. And I'm not even going to be able to read it because I can't even do Italian yet. But it's going to happen, baby.
What kind of girl was she in high school?
She's a little different. She's not heavy into being into the popular crowd, even though she was a huge, athlete and could have kind of joined that kind of crowd in high school. You know, she didn't tend to do a huge amount of socializing in high school, except in those small groups. You know, she didn't go to the football games and hang out a lot, because that wasn't interesting for her. But working on a musical or
spending hours working on musicals.
Amanda's the kindest person I know, and she'll do anything to make people happy, and she cares about everyone else before herself.
So in Perugia, Knox shared a flat with a couple other girls. The main person we're going to be talking about, really the only other person, is Meredith Kercher. She was 21. She was from London, also studying linguistics. There's 2 other girls that are in a flat, but they're not involved in this at all, so we're not going to
Mention their name.
Yeah, we're not going to go over that. On October 20th, Kercher got romantically involved with a guy named Celesdi.
Solenzi. I don't know. I don't know if that's his first name or his last name. It's that guy. She was romantically involved with him. She went to some nightclub with him, and I guess Knox was there.
So they probably, I imagine from both of them being outside of the country going into Italy, they're probably sticking together when they're going out and
But
about.
I just want to say something really fast. Meredith was very
they're really
conservative, and Amanda Knox said in like an interview that she was going over to Italy to like find herself and find out if she would basically turn into an adult. So I think she was being a little bit floozy. I don't know if y'all know that word, skanky. That's a pretty broad.
She may have been, and I think you're right, because I think Meredith knew who she was, and she was going to better herself and not find herself.
Right. And you know what? I just want to say out there a point. Men having sex, women having sex. I don't care who you have sex with, when you have sex with them, how many times you have sex with them. It should not be a thing, you know. So if she wanted to go out there and find herself and have sex with 50 guys, then, you know, let her do it. That's her prerogative. So anyway, back to the story.
So they went to this nightclub, and they, did their thing. And then later that night, there was a guy named Rudy. I pronounced his last name wrong. It's like Guide.
That's what I heard on a few. So I think that's it.
And he ended up coming back to the flat or the basement that's underneath where they were at, because it's a 2-story deal.
And he's somebody that we are going to talk about later. So you just, keep in mind that he was in the area about 10 days before Meredith was murdered.
So then on October 25th, Knox was back out at, I think there was like a concert or some type of festival that they were at, and she ended up meeting a young man named Raphael. And again,
Solecito, I say it.
Okay, so you can say the last names, because I'm gonna have a rough time with that. So Raphael.
He was calling him Mario earlier. Mario. No, it's not Mario, it's Raphael. He doesn't get these names.
I get Raphael. The last name is what throws me.
He sounds like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Okay, I'm old.
No, it's a good reference. But
okay. So anyway, they began dating and, having this whirlwind romance. The actual day that the murder happened was October 31st into November 1st.
So they had barely known. This is all just in a short amount of time. All these people start knowing each other.
They seem very, very in love, and I know that people have that
I think it's definitely like a puppy love. This is an American girl. Oh, this is an Italian guy.
Exactly.
That kind of thing. But, whatever, it went, they did both go head first.
Yes, for sure. So Knox is over in Perugia, and she said that she thought that coursework was going to be quite difficult, and she wasn't planning on getting a job. Well, she got over there and she said, it was a piece of cake for her. So she wanted to get a job, make some extra money. Although she did have some saved, she said it would be, a good idea to go out and meet people. So she met this club owner named Patrick Lamumba. And I think he was from the Congo.
Yeah.
He sang music. And this was kind of a hippity hop bar, I guess. It was named Le Chic. Don't make that face. He wanted to bring more patrons in, so he hired this American girl. And over there, Amanda Knox was this beautiful American blonde girl. And I'm not going to say anything about her appearance. I'll just keep
she
that
had
to
said
myself.
and she had said that all the times when she was here, she was just average.
A cute girl. And then she went over there and she was just beautiful, and men wanted to sweep her off her feet. And like I said, I'm not going to say anything about her personal or her appearance, because somebody beat me up in the Brittany Murphy because I was making fun of Simon because he is not attractive at all. So I'm not going to talk about physical appearances in this one. All right, so now we're going to talk about the night of October 31st, and I don't know if they don't celebrate Halloween over there, but they were chilling in Raphael's apartment.
Oh, it would be Halloween.
Yeah. So Amanda and Raphael were in his apartment. They were watching Amelie. It's Amelia, I guess, in American. It's out. I've seen it.
They just have to say they have to make it sound better.
Yeah. Well, I haven't actually seen the movie, but I've seen it at the video store that no longer exists anymore.
Like a Blockbuster.
Shut up. Okay. Anyway, so they're watching the movie. She gets a text from Patrick Lumumba saying, "Hey, your shift's canceled. You don't have to come in." She's like, "Great," and she texts him back something that you and I would say, like, "I'll see you later. Have a good night." And "I'll see you later" means it doesn't mean I'm making an appointment to see you later. And this is where the Italian police get really kind of picky with the words, because I don't think they understand our American phrases.
Yeah, it's like a different, like, not slang, but like almost like,
Right, like "see you later." You're not really going to see that person later that day. You'll see them later at some point. So, I mean, we'll talk about the investigation and this stupid investigator again later. So they make dinner and end up making love, and that was like the thing they did like for that whole week, was just hump, hump, hump.
The first 5 days.
And Raphael was very, very new to sexual stuff. So he was like, wow, this is fun.
Any guys like that.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Doesn't
so he
matter.
was like madly in love with her, and she was like madly in love with him. And they, spent the previous 5 days going to shops, looking at lingerie, talking about dirty sex, and all of that. So they cook dinner, end up having sex, and they fall asleep. And the next morning they wake up, and Amanda's like, "I'm gonna go back to my place." I don't know what she had planned for the day originally, but that drastically changed. She goes back, and she first notices that her door to her flat is open. And in an interview, she said the door didn't really latch really well, so she was thinking someone didn't shut it all the way.
Also, if you have like 3 other people that live there, it's possible like someone opened the door, left it open, right? Like I would think that if someone just left the door open, maybe they're outside doing something.
At that point, yes, at that point. So she walks in, alarm bells don't go off yet. I probably wouldn't go in the apartment. I would probably call your ass and make you come home and check the house. Okay, anyway, so she goes in the house and she's like, "I got a shower." So she goes in the bathroom and notices a little bit of blood on the sink. Brushes her teeth, no alarm bells, gets in the shower, does her thing, steps out, and looks down at the rug, and there's a bloody footprint. And again, no alarm bells go up.
And see, to me, my first thought...
blood in the sink, a few spots. People brush their teeth, gums bleed, I get that. But...
Or like if someone was shaving, I guess.
Yeah.
But another girl shaved their face.
But the foot...
How would you?
Print.
My thing is, why didn't you see the footprint when you went in?
Because I don't look at the bathroom rug when I walk in.
I do, but I notice color differences.
Okay, well, you're not Amanda Knox. Amanda Knox did not see that. So as she's getting out, she sees that someone maybe had a period problem, is what she said. If I had a period problem and I got blood all over, I wouldn't leave the house. I would clean it up, because that's embarrassing. Like, there were 2 bathrooms in the home, and I get that, but she was in the one where all of the blood was. And then I guess she's blow drying her hair. And she looks over, and there's a pile of shit in the toilet. And that got her. She said she felt creeped out and that someone was in the house with her.
Now, and I guess if you know your roommates and you know if they're super clean,
Well, they're obviously not. There's blood everywhere.
That's what I'm saying. But like, also like, even with all this, who did that? Like, who's like, you know what?
Rudy.
On top of killing,
he was a dude. Guys don't sometimes. His story will come later to
What?
why there is shit in the toilet. Remember, he said he was taking a dump and then he heard her scream. Okay, we'll talk about that later. But I don't know who doesn't. I mean, sometimes he doesn't flush when he pees, and that doesn't bother me so much. But if he left a giant dump in the toilet and didn't flush it, I'd be like.
Yeah, but why would there be blood on the...
Okay, well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. All right, so with the discovery of the poop, alarm bells go off. She's like, I gotta get out of this house. So she goes over Raphael's, and I heard this in one, I guess she brought a mop. And this was not talked about. We watched a Netflix documentary that was really good. You guys should watch it. It covered the case pretty well, but it was kind of towards her innocence, and we kind of wanted to get both sides, so we watched a few. So anyway, she goes over Raphael's. I guess his pipe burst, and in the midst of her getting freaked out about poop in the toilet, she's like, oh, before I go, let me grab a mop. I don't know.
We watched another one where they did like analysis
of her body language during her interviews.
And they said like,
cool.
Now we still think Amanda Knox didn't do it. Like I personally think she's weird. Like she's a weird person. She's just kind of quirky and in her own way. And just because her story's odd and like things are alarming to her doesn't mean she did it, because we kind of more agree on forensic stuff.
But we'll talk about how she acted during the investigation later. We're not talking about that now. We're talking about the discovery of the body. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Here we go. Along the timeline. This is going to be 3 hours long if I just let him peep in. So here we go. We're trying to make this as quick as possible. So she goes over Raphael's, brings this mops up his kitchen or whatever, because he's in the bathroom. He gets out. She's like, this, and this, and there's poop in the toilet. Something's weird. So they go back, and they're looking through the house. No one's there. She says the common room is undisturbed. One of the other girls who's super clean, her room is undisturbed. One of the other girls, she said it kind of looks like there was stuff fluffled around and messed with, but her room was normal. So we have 3 areas that are normal and 1 that is not, she said. So they try to go in Meredith's room because this is the last bedroom and it's locked. So they're knocking on the door, calling to Meredith, nothing. Knocking on the door, calling to Meredith, nothing. So she says, Raphael, bust the door down. So he tries to kick it 2 times, doesn't work. And they end up calling the police at this time. Now, we watched another one where there was somebody chucked Meredith's cell phone out the window, and there's like 3 levels of the Italian police, and these were just like citizen police officers, I guess. And they found this phone, and they went to go return it to Meredith because it was the address was registered to her, whatever. So they were. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's just odd. It was at the same time
that this was all going on.
Yeah, so like they were already there, and the police had kind of
came in. So they come in, bust down the door, and discover Meredith's body. Now, she was covered up, but there was blood everywhere in the room. And we're going to try to put some pictures up, but we want to be respectful and not put any up of her actual body. So she had like 40-some marks on her, whether they were scratches or stab wounds. She was stabbed, and she had a very deep gash in her neck. And like I said, she was covered, she was nude, and in one of the episodes of this we watched, they said that only a woman would cover up a body because they were ashamed.
And that's so not true.
I don't think it's true. We've done cases or watched documentaries where because people are ashamed.
It's remorseful.
And they don't want to see that person. They'll cover them while they're strangling them, or cover the body after they've done, the killing.
So they don't have to actually see that kind of stuff.
So I don't think this is gender specific as far as covering the body.
And we also talked about, like, if it was a woman killing another woman, normally that, to me, there's few reasons, like maybe something spiteful. So I don't feel like a sign of remorse would really be what we would see from a woman killing a woman.
Different. They had different personalities, but they got along, and they went and they hung out, the 10 days or whatever that she was there, 2 weeks, whatever. So they were friends. They just had kind of different personalities, and that's okay. I have friends that have different personalities than me, and we get along great. So the investigators come in, and this is where we'll talk about the investigation and this stupid guy, Giuliano Mignini, I think it's Mignini, Mignini, whatever. They should have had an O at the end. Manginio. But anyway, so we're going to talk about this guy, and he is terrible. He loves Sherlock Holmes, who is a fictional character. Sherlock Holmes is not real.
But you see him walk around with
He's a pipe.
Good corncob pipe. It's hilarious.
It's like, what? Corncob pipe? It's frosty.
Still, fictional characters. We're on the same thing here. On the same page.
Alrighty. So after the discovery of Meredith's body, obviously they were taken, Knox and Retrial were taken to the police station just to ask questions at first. And I guess that went well because they were not arrested yet. So for 5 days, they were questioned, interrogated, and Amanda said that there was no interpreter present. So
Pronto, buongiorno. Senta, qualcuno è praticamente entrato in casa sfondando la finestra e ha messo molto disordine, c'è una porta chiusa. La via è... Via della Pergola. Perugia Carabinieri? Della Pergola 7. Via? Della Pergola 7 a Perugia.
Furto in abitazione, eh?
No, non c'è furto.
Vediamo se è questo.
No? Battaglia,
I don't know if stuff could have got switched around, but whatever. Anyways, Retrial broke, and he said that she did not come back to his apartment on October 31st until 1 a.m. So it was actually November 1st. And he later recants this and said, I was manipulated. And Amanda Knox signs a confession that she did return to her room. So they were like beating her upside the head, not treating her.
And we've seen this kind of stuff. I mean, we've seen other cases where it's coercion, super huge. If you guys have ever seen, what is it, Making a Murderer?
Mm-hmm.
They do complete coercion where they take advantage of someone they
lead the statement,
lead questions,
so that you are like almost, and they do this for hours on end.
You gotta think this is probably 10 plus hours, low light settings. They deprive you of a lot of stuff. You're in an isolated area.
You're not eating. You're not drinking.
You're being attacked by people, and then I don't know. Again, these people they're a little bit different. Like I said, quirky. Because they said during his part,
and we've seen that they have to pin the murder. I mean, because this went huge. I mean, a lot bigger.
Like global.
Yeah. So, I mean, everyone was tuning in to find out what was going on. So, so Amanda admits that she did return to her room, her flat. And like I said, Retrial said she didn't come back till 1 a.m., but she pointed the finger at Patrick Lumumba and said that she was in the room when he murdered her. So on November 6, 2007, the Italian police announced that Kercher's killers had been found, that it was, American Girl, Amanda Knox, and Rafael Solicito. They were arrested at this time. So after, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks, they did prove Patrick Lumumba's alibi, and he was released. So they no longer had a suspect. So they said that Retrial and Amanda were, they helped Patrick, or what's that word called? See, I'm forgetting my words again. Accomplice is the word. So they said Amanda was an accomplice, Retrial and Patrick murdered. And I'm going to back up just for a second. Harrison brought up a good point that,
I did?
I'm only saying it once.
You heard it.
So they were looking through her phone because she says, look at my phone, take the GPS. I didn't do this.
Yeah, because they were trying to track to see where she was.
Right. So they look at her phone and they see that text message that says, "I'll see you later. Have a good night." And they said, "You were making an appointment with him to, later kill Meredith Kercher, blah, blah, blah." So whatever. I think that's bullshit,
Again, I think it's
stupid.
and if nothing else, it's a misunderstanding of
Correct.
But
Again,
phrasing.
they didn't have an interpreter. They're slapping her upside the head, depriving her of everything, calling her stupid. So
Why? I was stressed. I was scared. It was after long hours. It was in the middle of the night. I was innocent. They were telling me that I was guilty.
Che cosa le diceva la polizia?
What did police tell you? The police were telling me that we know you're at our house. We know that you run the house. And was the moment before I said Patrick's name, someone was showing me the message that I had sent on the phone.
Che cosa c'è di più normale che insistere? La polizia fa la sua parte.
I couldn't understand why they were telling me that I was lying. They kept telling me that I was lying.
Ma perché poi prima ci ha detto potrebbe essere vero.
It means that in that moment that I had said Patrick's name, I thought it could have been true.
So what's the extent of the police evidence at this point?
anyway, so they are arrested on November 6, 2007. And later, about 2 weeks later, Patrick is in prison and he gives his alibi, like, I was here and he was bartending at his club, and they got the cameras to prove it. So Patrick was released. So now they don't have a suspect in the murder, and everyone points to Amanda Knox and Rafael Solicito.
And just real quick, I think it goes to show, like, I don't know how the movement and how everything works so well in other countries, like investigative process. But I would think in most cases, like in America, if you brought someone in that was in question, like Patrick, right? You would sit him down, talk to him, he'd give you the alibi. It wouldn't take 2 or 3 weeks to get footage to prove. I mean, did have him in and out within a day because they can't hold him for over 20 or 48 hours.
Everything takes forever. I mean, the Madeleine McCann thing, I mean, things are just very different than they are in the United States. And it's just,
But, we've seen it be the other way too. So I think it goes down a lot to maybe the area and the police force itself.
The trial lasted like 300.
Almost a full year, like 320.
No, it was over a year.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. So it was like 396 days or something. I mean, don't quote me on that number. Please don't come after me about the damn number. It was over a year that this trial took to prove her guilty at the first time. Okay, so now let's talk about the DNA evidence. Okay, so I'm just going to start this out by saying these crime scene investigators did a really shoddy job of collecting the data, of processing the data, of, this is why she was found guilty. So they're collecting all their evidence, and they got over like 300 pieces, 500 pieces, whatever it is, a ton. But, it was later noted that they didn't change their booties from room to room.
Which is on your feet.
Yeah, it's on your feet. So you're tracking DNA from there to here to there to there to there. And, it's a flat. There's 4 other girls living there.
And not even that, like exiting, come back in. Not even just trapping around.
So just not good technique on their part. And I don't know if this is how it goes over there, or if these guys were just, lazy. And we've seen police work. I'm not saying anything about police officers, not saying anything bad. My sister is a police officer. But sometimes, maybe they don't see the whole picture, and they're maybe a little bit wrapped up, or they have something else going on. But they didn't change their gloves. They, were processing Meredith's DNA and all her stuff that they took from the crime scene, and processing the murder weapon.
Yeah, they're cross-contaminating their items while they're processing. So they pretty much had all their evidence at once.
And they're not changing their gloves. So DNA, you can get DNA by just touching somebody. So it was just, it was really, really terrible. Alrighty, so after that shoddy DNA evidence, they noticed that the DNA evidence at first did not point to Amanda Knox and Retrial. So it pointed to our other gentleman, Rudy Guede. It's Guede, Guede, Guide, whatever. So he was a friend. There was an Italian man living underneath them. He played basketball with him. He was also involved in a string of burglaries, so he doesn't have a really good rap sheet. And he was immediately arrested in Germany.
Because he fled the country.
Right. Yeah, that's right. He did. He was immediately arrested, and he did opt for a fast-track trial, and this was in October 2008. He did not want Amanda and Retrial to, I guess, get together and build some more, a bigger case against him. So he was found guilty and sentenced to 30 years in prison. And at that point, Knox and Solicito decided that they wanted to have a trial as well, and to be trialed together or found, whatever it's called. So they were tried together. And this is where we get into this investigator that I can't stand. His name is Giuliano Mignini. So, and he was terrible at painting this picture that Amanda Knox was this sex-crazed American girl, that Americans are terrible, that she was this femme fatale, that she coerced Retrial, and they were doing this sex game and killed Meredith because of it. I mean, it was terrible.
And it literally made, like, what he said made no sense. It sounds like some crazy sci-fi fantasy writer would... And
there was this in Nick Pisa, is this reporter in the Netflix special, and he's terrible too. He's basically saying, I'll do anything to get a story. I'll push people down, and, he wants to get the news out first, and, he terrorized her name as well. And I just want to say, all you Trump supporters, we're just going there for a second, that when Amanda Knox was on trial in Italy, our President Obama was in office, and Trump, had an interview with somebody from, 2020 or whatever, and he said that, what they're doing is wrong. They're holding her, and this lasted a long time, the trial and, everything. We're talking about it quickly here, but she was in prison for a long time, like 2 years before the trial even took place. So, I mean, and I don't know what the Italian prisons look like, if they're cleanly. Well, I don't know if any prison's cleanly, but Trump said that he wants to help the family, although they didn't come to him yet, but he would. And he said that President Obama needs to get her out of Italy, and, I just found that really cool that he was willing to, say, what they're doing is wrong, and say that all Americans should boycott Italy. I thought that was pretty cool.
Celebrity developer, multi-level marketer, star of The Apprentice. Now from his office high atop Trump Tower in New York, Trump reflects on the opinion that he wrote that fueled the fire following a guilty verdict that sent Amanda Knox to jail for 26 years.
Well, I think I'm good at judging people, and I study people, and I become rich because I understand what people are about. And I watched the Amanda Knox case unfolding in news reports from people like yourself. And after watching it for a little while, I said, this is not a guilty person. There's no evidence that links her to this crime, other than she said some stupid things after, being tormented for hours and hours and hours.
You said you might help the family. What do you mean?
I may. I mean, they haven't asked me, but I may help the family. I think it's very unfair. I help a lot of families. I help many families all over the United States, actually. It just hit me. There's no reward in this for me. If anything, it's the opposite. I mean, I have a whole country that maybe doesn't like that I'm doing this, but I think it's very unfair, and I think that President Obama should get involved immediately and get her the hell out of jail, because she shouldn't be there.
you saw a huge disconnect. So like all of Italy wanted them to like burn, and all of America, you know, thought that they were innocent.
Yeah, the Italians were like, we hate her, she's a she-devil, and, you know, we're cursing her name. So.
And they had like tabloids and news articles using that thing, Foxy Noxy, like just blasting her, talking like she's some type of, like you said, sex deviant.
Right.
Killing people.
So on December 29th, 2009, they did find Amanda Knox and Retrial guilty of the murder of Meredith Kercher. Amanda was sentenced to 26 years and Retrial was sentenced to 25. And I read somewhere that it was because she had lied to the police in her interview.
About Patrick.
And
it got her an extra year.
Yeah. So she was sentenced to 25 years.
26.
26, excuse me. So this is where the appeals come. And like Harrison said, the Americans were behind her and supporting her. And her family always made sure someone was there to visit her, you know, to just keep her strong. Because as a 20-year-old, she's 20 the time that this is happening. And I don't know if I would have been able to be that strong to, you know, withstand all this stuff.
Not at all.
It's crazy. And, you know, she's still the same person today. Well, I mean, kind of. She's still a little quirky. In April of 2010, Amanda's lawyers and Celestito's lawyers filed appeals to get, you know, other things looked at. The DNA, you know, they had said that DNA found on the knife was Amanda's on the handle, and then on the blade there was this minute baby speck of Kercher's DNA. So of course they blew that out of the water, said that was the knife.
And I thought the whole thing was real suspect anyways, because so they were really fishing for this, and they looked through Amanda's apartment for like any knives missing, and then they went over to Raphael's apartment and they found a knife that was similar enough. And I'm like,
and you know what? They cooked dinner there a few days. And so Amanda's DNA was probably on that knife. And there was probably quite a bit. Like she held it. She was probably chopping something. And like I said, the DNA on the blade was very, very small. And again, like I said previously, when they were examining this knife for DNA and collecting it, Meredith's stuff was just chilling out there. And again, not changing your gloves and touching the victim's objects and then touching the murder weapon without changing your glove is going to transfer DNA. And I don't know why this was so difficult for the Italian police and investigators to understand, like, the DNA on there. They just wanted to point the finger at Amanda because after all this giant
hoopla.
Yeah, that they were pointing the finger, all this news articles and everything. I mean, I think they would feel embarrassed or, you know, oh, we messed up. We made this big giant deal about this story and they were wrong. So I think they were just going with, you know, whatever they had at that point. So on October 3rd, 2011, 2 years after the first trial, the murder convictions were upheld. So they had an acquittal. So Amanda was able to return to Seattle and, you know, Retrial was able to return to life. And in the documentary, I mean, can you imagine being in prison for 3+ years and then being like, okay, you're free to go. Where do you go? You know, do you have anywhere to live? Do you have your family still behind you? You don't have a job, you know, you don't have any money. I mean, that would be a very, very difficult, you know, going into that. I don't know.
Especially for Raphael.
Yeah. So Amanda, and he's so cute. He's a sweet guy. So Amanda goes back to Seattle with her family and continues her studies. Okay, so here we go. This is back, forth. So March 2013, they are ordered to stand trial again for the murder of Meredith Kercher. And Knox was in Washington. So she was watching all of this via like webcam and, you know, on the internet, and Celestito was there. So they're going through all this again, you know, bringing up old wounds. I mean, she's been free for 2 years, and then they're like, sorry, we're going to do this again. So
Even though they had Rudy this entire time,
Right.
whose DNA was all through it, and without a doubt.
So it's ridiculous. So this goes on for another year, and in February 2014, they are found guilty again. And Sollecito got his 25-year again, and then Amanda Knox had some years tacked on. So she was 28 and a half years in prison. So it said that she wrote, you know, I'm frightened and saddened by this unjust verdict. Having been found innocent before, I expected better from the Italian justice system. The evidence and accusatory theory do not justify a verdict of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. There has always been a marked lack of evidence. So we're going back to the DNA. You know, I don't know, again, why they can't understand, you know, the shitty way that they collected this crap, and they're still trying to point the finger because you have a family. Meredith Kercher's family was very, very in the public eye. Her sister spoke out a lot about this. So the Italian, you know, justice system is trying to find a person to pin on, even though they have a man in prison, Rudy, in prison for 30 years. It got later reduced to 16. He's going to be getting out. So he murdered a woman and he's released. But you have Amanda Knox, who's innocent of this, and these people are just attacking her. You know, we have a man in prison. Why are they still doing this to this innocent girl and this young man?
Well, it's because they originally thought that from the original investigation that this was a group of people.
Right.
2 or 3 people had to be involved.
Right, because I guess orgies are a thing overseas. I mean...
But this all tied into their original thing of like some sex game.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, here we go. And they're found guilty again. So she basically has to go back to Italy and go back into the Italian prison. So they filed another appeal. And in March 2015... the Supreme Court in Italy did overturn the convictions of Knox and Sollecito. Okay, this ruling was a final decision. They're like, we're done. The case is closed. We're not doing this again. So 3 trials. That's
insane.
Ridiculous. I mean,
with no forensic evidence.
Right. So Harrison mentioned earlier, we watched it was like a critique of her body language, her like a little, or how she swallowed.
The facial giveaways, different things like that.
Right. So, I mean, it was very, very interesting to watch, but Harrison made a good point.
She said it again. Did you hear that? Did you hear that?
They were critiquing an interview that was literally like 10 years after everything happened. They didn't have original investigative video.
Right.
So they were, you know, and she had told this story for the past 10 years. So she knew what she needed to cover. She knew the questions that people were asking because they kept saying that her story is too built up and too fluffy.
Right.
And
it sounds really rehearsed.
Well, it probably
is. It
is.
You know?
So, I mean, there's a lot of things out there. I mean, she said, you know, Google my name and you'll get 7.1 million hits. And a lot of them are not nice. And that's true. We do videos on here and people say shitty stuff to us all the time. We have a lot of good remarks and a lot of good followers. So
and we really like you guys.
Thank you guys.
You guys are awesome. You're the ones, y'all suck.
Yeah. And just stop watching. If you don't like what we're saying or what we're doing, this is our opinion. Stop watching. Anyway, off that. Okay. So in 2017, she returned to Italy and was awarded some damages and, you know, all that stuff. But I mean, she went through a lot at a young age, and I can't help imagine that didn't like define her character later on in life.
Completely messed her up
and affected her. Yeah,
I mean, not to mention, you know, during the first bit when she was in prison, they told her that she had AIDS to try to mess with her.
Up. Yeah,
and they convinced her that she had AIDS, and then turns out she didn't have AIDS, and she was scared she was going to die.
Right. So this Nick Pisa that I talked about earlier, he's an Italian reporter. He got her diary while she was in prison and leaked it to everybody. I mean, she's writing personal stuff in there, and you know, what right is it for those the officers, whoever told her she had HIV, they did a blood test because they said that she was, floozy or whatever. And they said, oh, by the way, you have HIV. So she's over here trying to
freaking out,
go through it. And she said she had sex with 7 guys. Okay.
But, nonetheless, she's out of prison at this point. She's been messed with and tormented from her young 20s.
Right.
Who knows what happened inside the prison system? She's had her whole diary exploited to the world.
Right. I mean, that's terrible.
Insane.
Yeah. So after all of this, I mean, she still seems sane, still a little quirky, but she did get married to her longtime boyfriend, Christopher Robinson.
Winnie the Pooh.
So,
do they live at the 100-acre woods?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. But she is a very big advocate for the Innocence Project, which I think is awesome. Like, she went through that. She knows firsthand, the kind of shit that she went through. I mean,
we see a lot of people they
advocate for that kind of stuff after they're found innocent. So good for her. She's living her life. I think she's still in Seattle. And then we have Retrial, who is a true crime reporter in Italy. So I think that's cool that he kind of took, his
personal experience,
and
invested it into helping others as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, this was a really cool case. I'm glad he learned something. I knew about it. I knew a little bit. I honestly thought she was guilty. And I was like, what the hell's going on with this? And after a while, I just, it was just another news article after another. She was guilty, innocent, guilty. I kind of lost track. But so it was really fun going over this and kind of looking deeper into the case. So thank you for your suggestion. And as always, keep those coming. And we love interacting with you guys. So
as long as they're nice,
leave your comments below.
As long as they're nice.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.